Thank you for joining us. We are showcasing research at Ryerson Urban Water. It all starts with brilliant HQP. My name is Angela Murphy. I am Manager of Research and Partnerships at Ryerson Urban Water. Ryerson Urban Water is a research consortium comprised of researchers across the university. We perform multidisciplinary collaborative projects. Currently, we have sewer surveillance of COVID-19, emerging contaminants in urban watersheds, including road salt and microplastics, as well as green infrastructure and low impact development. The 10 students that we bring to you today represent the building blocks of Ryerson Urban Water. And we will begin with Farokh Kakar. Farokh?
Hello, everyone. This is Farokh Kakar. I'm a PhD student in Civil Engineering Department, Ryerson University, and my research focuses on intensification of anaerobic digestion through hydrothermal pretreatment. Okay, so I will start like this. You will hear this, not in my backyard. This is a common received response when it is asked to have a landfill in someone's backyard. But can we change this response to not in my backyard, but maybe in my basement? Absolutely. If we could treat the waste in your basement and not only treat, but turn it to energy for heating and lighting your house. In this case, we'll minimize the footprint of waste and environment and produce alternative energy to fossil fuel. Plus, it would eliminate your utility bill. Indeed, such technology exists. Anaerobic digestion is a technology where, in the absence of oxygen, bacteria consume the waste and turn it to value-added products such as methane and fertilizers. To better understand this process, imagine a cow rather than bacteria. When cows eat the agricultural waste, they chew it first, solubilizing the food in their mouth, and then in their stomach, these foods get digested. The result is some solid, some liquid, and gas. So same process happens when small bacteria eat the waste. But here's the challenge. All organic wastes are not rapidly biodegradable, which consequently, bacteria are not able to produce abundant amount of methane to be considered economy. In order to enhance the methane production, in my research, I cook or thermally pre-treat the waste before feeding it to the bugs. I evaluate different parameters affecting the thermal pretreatment, such as temperature, retention time, solid content, pH, addition of chemicals, and etc., to find out the optimal condition for methane production and make this process economically feasible. So far, I have found that the optimal pretreatment temperature and retention time in terms of biogas production from sludge is 170 degrees Celsius and 30 minutes retention time. Also, I observed that adding chemicals to the thermal pretreatment enhances methane production. Still, more research needs to be done to get rid of the utility bill and bring this technology to your basement. Thank you. And I would like to pass it on to Barry. Barry, floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, good day, everybody. I'm Barry Orr, and I'm going to talk to you today about assessing consumer products flushability for sewer systems. I'm an environmental applied. Just go back for a minute there, please. Thanks, perfect. I'm in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program, and I've done a lot of work with the City of London, with the Canadian Wastewater Association, with the Municipal Enforcement Sewer Use Group, the International Water Services Flushability Group, and my supervisor, Dr. Darko Josimovic. Next. So my research topic is, do the flow conditions in a sewer system allow for sufficient dispersibility of consumer products to prevent sewer blockages? Now here you're going to see on the left-hand side, me in my orange coat from the City of London holding a major blockage at our pumping station. Down below is what is called a fatberg. A fatberg is when people flush fats, oils, and grease and non-flushable material that causes the blockage. And so our biggest problem today is that 53% of the population are reportedly flushing products down the toilet that they shouldn't be. And so we've been researching wipes. So wipes comes in many different forms, such as flushable and non-flushable. Here I hold a wipe that is typically used for disinfectant. Well, these sheets are made of cellulose, cotton, regenerated cellulose, or single-use plastic item. The fibers make these wipes very, very strong, that they are not very dispersible. And so because we do not have a standard in place that allows manufacturers to put a label of flushable on their product based on a criteria, we're seeing confused consumer disposal of these wipes. And so I really want everyone to understand that toilets are not garbage cans, and our research will look closer at these wipes that should be dispersing. I would now like to pass it over to my colleague, Elissa.
Thank you, Barry. And hello, everyone. My name is Elissa Penfound. I'm a PhD student in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program at Ryerson University. And I'll be presenting today about my doctoral dissertation, which is called Modeling Historic and Future Impacts of Anthropogenic Development and Expansion on Wetland Distribution in Southern Ontario. The research that I'm conducting is actually focused on mapping the spatial relationship between wetland loss, anthropogenic activity, and major flooding events to understand what types of anthropogenic activity facilitate wetland loss, as well as to understand how wetland loss contributes to the severity of major flooding events. This research will be divided into 3 studies that will explore first the historic relationship between wetland loss and anthropogenic activity between the years 1800 and 2019 in Southern Ontario. 2, the spatial relationship between wetland loss and areas that are impacted by major flooding events throughout the city of Toronto. And 3, how continued anthropogenic activity may impact wetland distribution in Southern Ontario over the next 100 years, and use this to show how this may increase the severity of flooding events in certain locations throughout the province. Wetland loss is actually a global problem, and in Southern Ontario, wetlands have experienced an estimated loss of more than 68% due to urban, suburban development, agricultural expansion, as well as other human-induced factors. And wetlands also play an important role in flood management. This is especially in urban areas where extensive land cover is made up of impervious surfaces, and the presence of wetlands facilitates flood peak reduction, making the impacts of major flooding events less severe. My research aims to map changes in the distribution of wetlands and spatially correlate these changes to flooding events and human activity. And this is actually a very important component of managing, restoring, and protecting these ecologically significant systems. Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Francis to present their research.
Thanks, Elissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Francis. I'm a PhD candidate at the Civil Engineering Department in Ryerson. Today, I'll be talking about my research in situ vacuum extraction of volatile fatty acids. If you sprayed on some perfume today, stored some food in a plastic container, or sat at a wooden desk or chair, then you probably used some volatile fatty acids. I'll call them VFAs for short. You can find VFAs in food flavoring and in fish bait, but very importantly, they're used in energy production. This is why the global demand for VFAs is rising at a rate of up to 15% annually. Now, traditionally, VFAs are made from petrochemical sources. That is, they have a fossil fuel base. This means that the expected increase in VFA production will only contribute to more environmental impacts like higher greenhouse gas emissions and rising global temperatures. And this is the reality unless we use alternatives like the organic portion of our waste. You see, these organics are great raw materials for VFA productions through fermentation. However, VFA production from fermentation has about half the efficiency as production from fossil fuels. And so the challenge is to make VFA production through fermentation of organic waste a competitive and economically feasible alternative to production from petrochemical sources. For this to happen, we'll need higher production rates and cleaner end products. In my research, I explored the characteristics of VFAs to design a vacuum extraction system. Using batch and continuous process experiments, I'm optimizing the operating conditions for collecting VFAs during fermentation, thereby increasing the production efficiency. My goal is to develop a technology that can be applied to different types of organic wastes to produce high purity streams that could potentially be used in pharmaceuticals, as well as low gauge streams that could be used in energy production or in wastewater treatment. The central drive of our research at the Environmental Resource Recovery Group at Ryerson is a saying that goes, there's no such thing as waste in nature, only wasted opportunities. Thank you very much. And now please welcome Hala.
Thank you, Francis. Hi, I'm Hala, and I'm a student in the Masters of Engineering, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. I am here to present to you my startup, the Gardenlix, as a smart planting solutions for urban dwellers. There's increase in population and urban growth, which are creating significant food supply challenges with corresponding cost increases and quality issues. And by the way, the small green and red dots, they are not pixels. They are how much cropping land is available and required in Ontario. They might be the same size now, but if Ontario keeps on growing this way, there is no way that it can sustain itself. On the other hand, we have communities and individuals all over the world who are craving for locally grown food and are looking to be a part of the solution. However, getting into efficient gardening is very challenging, especially in cold countries like Canada. Gardenlix is a smart planting solution that aims at helping urban dwellers plant their vegetable gardens in their backyards, terraces, and green roofs with minimum effort all year round and at lower costs. Thank you. And now welcome with me, Victoria.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm a PhD student at Ryerson University, and the title of my research is Removal of Microplastic Fibers from Wastewater Treatment Plants using Aerobic Granulation. Okay, plastics are the most dominant debris found in all water bodies and the environment, and they can be further broken down to microplastics. Microplastics are pieces of plastic particles that are less than 5 millimeters in dimension. The most predominantly occurring microplastics are microfibers, and one of the main sources of microfibers in the environment is from laundering of clothes. Due to their tiny sizes and very extremely smooth surfaces, microfibers cannot be captured by the treatment processes of wastewater treatment plants. And this may be because most wastewater treatment plants were not designed to eliminate microplastics. And also, wastewater treatment plants have been discovered to be significant sources of microplastics to the environment. Aerobic granulation is a relatively new biotechnology. It's a treatment process, and it has very great potentials to treat wastewater. Some of its advantages include great settlability and ability to stand high toxic waste. Aerobic granules are a collection of microorganisms. They are formed when microbes self-immobilize and aggregate. The objective of my research will be to develop a standard method for quantifying and characterizing microplastic fibers. This is because currently standard methods don't exist, and it makes comparison of results amongst researchers difficult. Also, I would want to determine the treatability of microfibers using aerobic granulation, as well as the routes of removal. My work is still in the preliminary stages. I will be happy to come back at the end of the day to tell you what the treatment efficiency of aerobic granulation is with respect to microfibers. I'll be handing over to Amber now for continuation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Victoria. Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Grant. I'm a PhD candidate in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program at Ryerson University. The work I'm presenting today is part of my broader PhD work. Our work responds to the growing evidence and concern that the social and environmental benefits of urban trees are inequitably distributed across city neighborhoods. Studies have demonstrated that racialized and low-income neighborhoods tend to have fewer trees than white and affluent neighborhoods do. As a result, municipalities have begun to implement tree planting programs such as tree giveaways in neighborhoods with fewer trees. Using a critical EJ framework, this work evaluates the perspectives of targeted community groups who have been working with the city of Philadelphia to give away free trees in their neighborhoods. Through participant observation and a series of interviews, we explored community group leaders' perspectives on the perceived and realized barriers to participating in tree giveaway events in Philadelphia. Some of our preliminary findings suggest that the built environment poses a barrier to individuals living in neighborhoods with no front or backyards. Additionally, in Philadelphia, homeowners are responsible for tree maintenance, even if the tree has been planted by the municipality adjacent to their property. In many cases, tree work is just not financially feasible for lower income groups. Moreover, in some cases, there is a lack of trust between city residents and the municipality. Much of this is related to historical policies and practices such as redlining and the underfunding of parks departments. Collectively, these actions have led to the disinvestment of racialized and low-income groups, and much of this is still visible today, as shown in the slides, shown in the photos on the slides. To help address this, honest and transparent engagement is required when promoting community tree planting. Lastly, people engaged in urban forestry tend to be white. Urban foresters need to acknowledge the role that whiteness plays in shaping and perpetuating environmental injustices related to tree canopy cover. An understanding of whiteness can help address recognitional injustices and help center racialized folks within urban forest policies and practices. Moreover, racialized folks need to see their identities, perspectives, and interests reflected in urban forest decision-making to expand their participation. Our work is very much so still underway, but we look forward to publishing our findings soon. And this case study is placed within the broader context of my dissertation research, which is to realize EJ and urban forest management across North American cities, where if successful, our work has broad implications for the sustainability and equity in cities. Next, I'd like to welcome Wyatt Weatherson to introduce his research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amber. So my name is Wyatt Weatherson, and I am a master's candidate in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program here at Ryerson University. My thesis is on the spatiotemporal variability of stream and groundwater chloride concentrations along the Niagara Escarpment in Hamilton, Ontario. This work is supervised by Dr. Claire Oswald and is in collaboration with Dr. Jim Roy from the Environment and Climate Change Canada. This thesis will work on understanding the timing, location, and quantity of chloride contributions to streams and groundwater from a variety of sources. Additionally, sampling of co-located groundwater seeps will uniquely allow for us to understand possible contributions of chloride to streams from groundwater without the need for drilling of groundwater wells. There are many different sources of chloride in aquatic environments. However, the most significant of these in northern temperate regions, such as southern Ontario, is road salt. The safe guideline for chloride exposure to aquatic organisms is 640 milligrams per liter for short-term exposures and 120 milligrams per liter for long-term exposures. This thesis will aim to understand the risk presented to sensitive species inhabiting the escarpment, such as the Jefferson salamander, red-side dace, and short-nosed cisco from chloride. Additionally, this thesis will help us to understand the factors that control chloride concentrations in the area, including road density, percent urban cover, proximity to roads, and watershed permeability. To do so, continuous monitoring of stream level, temperature, and conductivity, in addition to biweekly instantaneous monitoring and monthly grab samples, will help us to develop a continuous chloride time series for 10 distinct watersheds across Hamilton. This will cover a gradient of land uses, with particular attention given to urban and agricultural dominated land uses. Preliminary results indicate that streams and groundwater are regularly exceeding the long-term and short-term guidelines for chloride exposure in freshwater ecosystems, indicating that there is a potential for streams and other surface water bodies along the escarpment to become uninhabitable for sensitive species. I'd like to now welcome Lorna to discuss some of her research. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt. I am Lorna Murison, and I'm a master's student in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program under the supervision of Dr. Claire Oswald. And my research is in part trying to find out whether beet juice could be the solution to our road salt problem. So in the winter, in the Greater Toronto Area, our freshwater creeks are as salty as the ocean. In 2011, blue crab, a saltwater species, were found living in Toronto's Mimico Creek. And this is because of our addiction to road salt. For over half a century, road salt has been used to clear roads and parking lots of snow and ice in the winter. And scientists have been sounding the alarm bells about the environmental impacts of road salt for many years now. And because of this, people have been looking into alternatives. And one of those potential alternatives is beet juice. Now, in reality, both of these products are used together. Beet juice is combined with a salt brine and applied to a paved area as a pre-treatment before a snowfall. This stops the snow from forming a bond with the pavement and makes it easier to plow away without having to use as much rock salt. So I've been working with a landscaping company, and with their help, we're testing how much salt is used when a parking lot is and is not pre-treated with beet juice. Early results are showing that pre-treating with beet juice reduces the amount of salt used by 66%. But just because a product is organic or plant-based doesn't mean that it's environmentally safe. When a lot of organic material is added to a water body, it can change the ecosystem in pretty dramatic ways. And we've seen this with the phosphorus in fertilizers and detergents causing algae blooms in Lake Erie. So this research will help us understand the trade-offs between using beet juice and using salt. If we know exactly how much beet juice is needed to replace a certain amount of salt, then we can make informed decisions about which product will best support the environmental health of a given watershed. Thank you very much. And our next presenter is Caroline.
Thank you, Lorna. Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline John. I'm a master's student at Ryerson under the Environmental Applied Science and Management program. And my research is titled Ontario's Water Policy Reform Examined Through a Groundwater Lens, a longitudinal study looking into provincial policy measures and media reporting on groundwater in the province. So in my study, we look at the 20 years of policy and legislation that has followed the Walkerton tragedy of Ontario, which triggered focus to be brought into water issues in the province. Internationally, it has been recognized that groundwater is much understudied and a neglected area of water governance and water policy. Hence, my study looks at isolatedly groundwater policy measures and groundwater reporting as opposed to water issues. So in this two-phase study, in phase one, provincial policy measures by the Ontario government over the past 19 years have been analyzed, and in the second phase, newspaper reporting in the province of 9 newspapers have been analyzed to come to findings. Some findings are that the province is focused on land use measures to protect groundwater, as well as urban and industrial planning to protect groundwater. And there has also been significant investment in public participation in groundwater measures. Areas that have been shown to be not of importance have been the quantity aspects of groundwater. There has been a focus on quality as opposed to quantity. For example, a groundwater piezometric monitoring network. And also another area of focus that has been neglected is that because groundwater involves many stakeholders, there's a lack of identifying who's in charge of resource knowledge management in the province. When it comes to media reporting, it was found, as expected from previous literature, that groundwater is reported by negative framing, as well as more so episodic framing, where it is reporting following individual events, as opposed to thematic framing, where there's one overarching message for reporting on the issue. There were a lot of thematic elements as well as positive framing and mixed framing, but the articles that deviated from this norm were found to be more so negative and episodic, which shows that the issue is not having positive public opinion or mobilization in the province. However, it was also found that media reporting followed in line with groundwater policy measures in the province. So there has been more so reporting on groundwater in Ontario following the Walkerton tragedy than there is recently. And some recommendations from the study are for the province to focus on building a strong mandate and agency to focus on groundwater management plan in the province, as well as communications on groundwater to be positive and involving a thematic narrative which shows an overarching message as opposed to reporting and communications that follow along individual events and crisis and contamination storylines. So I will now forward to Chris Carfone, who will speak more on his research.
Thank you, Caroline. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Scarpone. I'm a PhD candidate in the Environmental Applied Science and Management program at Ryerson University. My research relates to identifying, is there a right spatial scale? Can we improve ecological modeling so that we can have more effective ecosystem management and monitoring practices? So what's the problem we have here? Urban ecosystem management is reliant on ecological modeling predictions to maintain comprehensive and effective management plans. We are really reliant on trying to digitize a lot of our surveying and moving it towards automated processes. Now, this is kind of problematic because current modeling approaches neglect to account for the scale of the process being modeled and the appropriate data representation for these environmental features. So we're not really taking into account, if we're looking at a specific process that we're trying to model, we aren't looking into what the actual scale is going to be. So this is problematic because we can change the representation of our data, but we can also change the message. So if we're looking at how we approach this, it's going to impact how our models are going to be able to address some of our issues. When we look up at the top right, this is one of our typical issues. This is a landscape. We have a valley glacier that has come through this area and created this flat bottom. And we're trying to monitor all of these different processes. How do we start to represent this into a digital kind of manifestation? Now, with rapid environmental damage from anthropogenic sources and human-induced climate change, it has increased our need to have faster, efficient, and accurate ecosystem monitoring approaches. So we are really starting to need to move to having automated and accurate kind of representation of these data sets. So hopefully with my research, what I've been showing is that we can use deep learning algorithms such as convolutional neural networks and modern data sources such as LiDAR to create 3D tree inventories, which can generate valid ecosystem monitoring and simulations with high efficiency and accuracy to kind of address some of these changes. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and many thanks to all of the students of Ryerson Urban Water for presenting their research today. For more information, please check out the Ryerson Urban Water website at ryerson.ca/water or our Twitter handle at Ryurbanwater. Thanks so much and have a great day.